Huh? Yes, I am. And Minister, I think for me, I think your boom went down. The last part of your comments weren't clear. But let me start here, Minister,
Sure,
asking you a
sure.
question. Yeah. Charlene Johnson from NOIA was here before you, and she talked about the disease of delay around this issue in the offshore. And it's been 6 years since December 2014, of course, when we actually needed to move this legislation forward. 6 years is a long time for the federal government to actually get some regulations firmly in place. And we have failed in that. The government has failed. The question, of course, is why did we fail? But I think even more failure was on the horizon here, Minister, when you talked about the initial government bill coming here through the Senate wanted 2 years to get this done right. And effectively, 2 years would be a long time from now. So not the end of 2021, but the end of 2022. So can you explain the delay one more time, please? And can you also tell us if you support the Senate amendments that were brought forward to limit it to 1 year and have those regulations done at the end of this calendar year, 2021, please?
And I thank the honourable member for his question. Yeah, it did take too long. There's no question about it. This isn't in whatever notes were prepared for me, but I will say this, and I think most Newfoundlanders and Labradorians would agree with me. The offshore has never figured very highly on the national lens or the national scope. I remember, in fact, our first full year in office. There was a contingent that attended Sarah Week in Houston, as the member well knows. And NRCan officials were there. The minister was there. I believe our premier of the day was there, and associate ministers, premiers from other provinces. It was a big celebration of Canadian energy. And as NRCan, on behalf of the Canadian contingent, made its opening remarks, it spoke of the great oil-producing provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan. And there was an awkward pause, as every Newfoundlander and Labradorian in the room waited for their province to be recognized as an oil-producing province, and they were not. So there is an institutional bias that I obviously have fought very hard to make sure to rectify, although to be fair to my colleagues, by the time I had arrived at NRCan, I think that lesson had been learned. I don't cast aspersions at either party. I think this is just kind of sometimes the Ottawa mentality. But the bottom line is that Newfoundland and Labrador is the third and a very important oil-producing province, and therefore it deserves the same attention and is wanting of the same attention, particularly on things that are as important as safety regulations. The regulations themselves are complex. I mean, as I said, they total some near 300 pages. And let me reassert, when it comes to the lives and safety of the men and women who work in our offshore, you don't take shortcuts. We own that to keep them safe. You have to consider the domestic and international standards.
I'm sorry to intervene. I've only got a little bit of time here, and I appreciate you answering these questions. Let me ask the next question then, please. 27 sitting days in Parliament. Now, this is something you and I can grapple with our hands. 27 sitting days from the time this received first reading until the time it received second reading on April 30th. 27 sitting days. How much legislation went through the House of Commons when I had clearly indicated to your office that we wanted this moved forward as quickly as possible and to get workers protected on the offshore? And yet it languished, it seemed, in your government House Leader's office. We heard the bleedings from your deputy House Leader that we were being partisan, and yet on bills we agree on, we weren't moving this one forward. Get these workers protected. We were saying we will pass this quickly, and yet it waited. Now, can you tell me why it waited in the lineup to get on the House of Commons agenda, please?
To be honest with you, I don't know if I'm capable of wading into the minutia that goes on behind the scenes and the twos and fros on what we get onto a government agenda. I'm very grateful that it is on now. I'm very grateful to the honourable member, and I'm very grateful to his party and to other parties present for making it such a priority. I will say that. It's with your help that we were able to get this done, and so I'm very grateful for the moment. But also too, I mean, this is something that's ingrained in every Newfoundland and Labradorian is the fact that the offshore for Newfoundland and Labrador is joint managed, and therefore everything has to be not just vetted and agreed upon by Canada, but also by Newfoundland and Labrador, and in Nova Scotia by Nova Scotia. So three governments. It's not something that happens with the snap of your fingers. It is complex. It does take time, and I think that's precisely why the original bill in 2014 included a 5-year period in order to get it done. There have been extensive engagement of stakeholders, particularly through the 2016-2018 period. And in fact, there was an amendment of the transitional regulations in 2017 to address a number of administrative irritants then, and that fix set us back some time. And COVID, I mean, nobody could ignore the impacts of the global pandemic. It forced us to change the way that we do everything, including institutional processes like regulation drafting and adapting to virtual working, and all that was challenging. But I am confident that the work that remains to be completed within the time that this bill would provide will get done, and it will be passed.
Well, thank you, Minister. 6 years have gone past, and right now we're in that dead zone where we don't have those regulations. I will encourage you in my last comments here to move this very quickly so these workers are protected one last time. I think that's all my time, but thank you very much for being here today.
I could not agree with you more. You have my word.